Hi, welcome to The Pursuit of Truth. It's still the 8th of August 2018, and I was just listening to Jamie Brown's YouTube channel, Jamie Brown, on I think it was the 4th of August, where he had Pete Shea, whose YouTube website I think is now actually Pete Shea Encore, I should say, really. I think the other one got banned for 60 days, which was Pete Shea. So that was interesting. They were talking about lots of different topics, but one of the things they were talking about is how allegations are made against people about repeating stuff, and he was saying that everyone does that, and that I agree with that, and I put a comment, and it's going to lead on to what I'm going to talk about in a second. But I agree. I'm sure if you listen to a lot of the stuff, I must be repeating certain bits over and over again. But I guess it's the same with writers. Like I've mentioned previously, if you read Charles Dickens' novels, you'll see there'll be themes of children, there'll be poverty, there'll be the debtor's bank, because his father was put in a debtor's bank. You'll see those themes cropping up in a lot of his stories. With painters, they paint certain things over and over again, so I think that's part of communication, part of humans. I often have mentioned it previously on here, where I worry about repeating the same thing, or I should be stopping. And the thing is, you get this urge you get an idea and you get an urge and you want to communicate it, and I guess that's part of what makes us human. Is communication is a key part of our life and our being. So maybe there's nothing we can do about that. I mean, you've only got to listen to conversations. If you walked around the town and listened to everyone's conversations, you'd hear how inane they are. So at least if you're repeating something that may be thought-provoking, then that at least has to count for something. So the other thing they were talking about is they were talking about on Dell's Beyond the Imaginary Curve show, there was someone tried to porn bomb him. Luckily, he didn't have the Hangout screen on view, so he was only getting audio. Just to disrupt, and I don't know why. Like if you disagree with the flat Earth and people's opinions and etc., I don't understand why you would even bother to listen to stay there for 2 hours listening to it and try and porn bomb him. Why you just don't ignore it, or have an actual civil conversation. But to go to that kind of tactic, I don't know, maybe it just seems like rather puerile. But the point that was made was like, why does God or the Creator allow these things to take place? And I put a comment, and I wanted to relay it on here because I thought after writing it, this actually explains what I've been trying to say previously on these pursuits, because I mentioned the subject of like, why God allows things, or not allows, but why these things are not stopped by God. And my example was, it would interfere, and I've mentioned it before, with free will. And the example I gave was it would be like a parent of a child following that child constantly and physically stopping them from doing anything bad. Now, would then that child be happy about that? I mean, God would, the parent is not allowing the child to do anything bad. That's what you're asking for. Why does God allow these things? Well, there's a way of doing it. So is that a life you want, where you physically stop from doing these things? Now, other people say, well, maybe these thoughts shouldn't ever enter people's heads, and that would be an easy way to sort it out. Well, then that's controlling the mind. And the other thing about that is, well, how would you stop? Because I was thinking about this, like, how would you stop child pornography? Because Pete Shea was suggesting it might have been child pornography, but I didn't hear anything to say that. But let's just say it's pornography. How would you stop people from making pornography? If you look at it, how would God stop that? Well, he'd have to stop the idea of men and women having sex, because that's what leads to people filming it. He'd have to stop cameras, because you need a camera to film it. You need two people consenting to have sex. So you'd have to stop sex, which would mean you wouldn't be able to propagate the species. You'd have to stop cameras, which would mean you wouldn't be able to have the ability of television and media and stuff like that, which, does have some positives and it does have negatives. So that would be how you'd stop pornography, and also the internet and magazines. So the printed word and the internet. So you'd have to stop all those things to stop that. You see, it's a bit like the example I've given before. I think it might be even Einstein that came up with this, that there is, like the atom can be used for good or it can be used for bad. But I think the example I'm thinking of is actually a car. I can't remember who actually mentioned this, but I heard someone previously mentioned it, that a car can be used for good, and these days it can be used for evil, where people can run people down. So it's all about the application. So when people ask, well, why can't God stop all these things happening? A lot of them are man-made, like why do people die of starvation and poverty? Why is God letting this happen? Well, no, he hasn't. He's given everything here. You have all the food that you possibly need for every single person on this planet and more. You have all this ability, but you've chopped it up and divided it and made people pay for it. So who's to blame for that? You want God to force your hand? Then if he did that, like I say, it's like a parent of a child forcing, here, take out some money, give it to this person, do this, do that, do this, do that. That person has no free will. So how do you know if that person is good or not? What life is that? It's not a free life, is it? It's not something we would all champion for. We would say that was repressive, and then there'd be people saying, oh, God's so repressive, I can't do anything because every time I try and do something, he stops me. Anyway, that's what I was thinking. The other thing I wanted to mention, which I carried on thinking about, is this idea of Jesus. A lot of people say that Jesus' name is not his real name. There was no Y, no J. I assume that's in the Greek alphabet. And that's another problem, because Jesus wasn't Greek, he was Jewish. So, but because they don't have that original documents. But now I'm starting to wonder, do those documents, well, I assume they do, they would have been the documents that St. Paul would have written over, and then they got lost, and then, they got translated and the original got lost. Anyway, so when I was looking that up, it was saying that Jesus' name is a Latin rendition, get this, of a Greek Isus. So it's a Latin rendition of a Greek Isus, which is a rendition of the Hebrew Yeshua. So really, probably, well, almost certainly, Jesus' name is not Jesus. It's more likely to have been Yeshua, because Yeshua is a Hebrew name, and obviously Jesus was a Jew. He wasn't Greek, he wasn't Latin. So Isus is a Greek name. And so he's not Greek, that wouldn't have been his name. And you see, Isus, if you look at it and you say it, it sounds a bit like Jesus. So I guess it's gone corrupted since then, or maybe that's the English translation of that, because it's E-E-S-O-U-S. But if you ask everyone, what is the prophet of the New Testament, the Christ, the Messiah, what is his name? Everyone will say Jesus. People call out his name. People pray in his name. But it's another one of these lies in plain sight, because his name is definitely not Jesus. Definitely not Jesus. It's impossible. But it's more likely Yeshua, like I say. But you can look that up yourself. But if you try to tell someone that, they wouldn't stop, would they? So how is it that we persuaded people to forgo what is truth and just stick with it? Because it's easy just to stick with it, because everyone calls it. So because of, was it 4 billion people or whatever call Jesus Jesus, or Yeshua Jesus, we all must do that now. There's no way we can change it, it's too late. How does that make any sense? It's interesting, isn't it? How many, like, all different things, the planet, time, language, all these things that have very little truth to them. You see how it's easy to persuade people to believe something, isn't it? You know, they believe in a person, they don't even know the person's name, and yet they're calling out that name in prayer. And the last thing I want to talk about is do not reply emails. I find this, with a lot of companies, and it just goes to show how unfair the balance is. When you email a company, they hardly ever reply back to you, even though it's the modern form of communication. But when they reply to you, because I've got like these emails, I've emailed, and then never replied. But they will send me an email, and their emails will always have the return email as do not reply, which they will defend by saying, well, we can't read all these emails, that's why we put that there, so it stops you from sending it. But so it's a one-way communication. This is what this is what we're saying to you, but you can't reply back to us. How did we ever get in this position where we, the customer, are not as equal as the company providing a service that we're paying for, that our voices aren't worthy of hearing? Anyway, that's enough for me. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.